Hey writers, it's Megan. Thanks so much for joining me. Sorry for the technical difficulties. Oh my goodness. It's always when you're most excited to get online that your internet's like, I don't think so, denied. All right. But thank you so much for joining us for this live masterclass, how to make readers fall in love with your story. I have been so excited all week to talk to you guys about this. I can't wait to share these strategies with you. So a couple of pieces of business. If you are not already in our Blab group, that's Book Launch Like a Boss, that's where you're going to want to make sure you get yourself a member, because following this live training, we're doing a live Q&A, and that's only going to be in the Blab group. So my partner in crime and the baddest marketing and mindset coach in the West, Ella, is going to be putting the links you need to join Blab in the comments. She's also going to be tracking your questions and comments. Oh, awesome. So Ella just gave me the heads up that we're shared in Blab now too. So hello, all you Blabbers. Awesome. I'm so excited you're here for this training, how to make readers fall in love with your story. Good morning, Sandra. Oh, good morning, Lori. As we're going through this, if you have questions or comments, please make sure you put them in the group. Ella is going to be tracking those. And again, we're going to be doing a live Q&A following the masterclass that will only be in the Blab group. It's not going to be an All Writers Welcome. It's just in Blab. So make sure you get yourself set up and join Blab. Ella will put a link in the comments. All right. So can you guys hear me okay? Is my mic level all right? Give me a sign, give me an emoji, give me a thumbs up, give me something. Hello out there in internet land. Let me know if you can hear me okay. All right, let's hear what you guys write. I would love to know what are some of the genres that people on this call are writing in. So in the comments, let me know, what genre are you writing in? What kind of genres do we have out there? Okay, thank you. You guys are hearing me loud and clear. Let me know what you're writing. I want to know what kind of writers we've got here. Anybody posting a genre? And Ella, maybe you can help me out, because I'm going to see comments in one group, but not in the other. So if you've got genre comments in both places, that'd be great. Ooh, general fiction, romantic erotica. Ooh. Paranormal romance, fantasy fiction. Awesome. So we got a lot of different genres going on, but guess what is so cool about this training? The strategies that I'm going to go through work for any genre, because what's going to make readers fall head over heels in love with your story is not dependent on a certain type of genre, a certain type of writing, a certain style. These are universals. All right. So no matter what you're writing, you know, the story is the most important thing. Oh, paranormal mystery, Christian romance, romantic comedy, paranormal romance. Awesome. So all these genres, you guys, the most important thing when you're thinking about launching your book is your story. It doesn't make any sense to put effort and energy into packaging your book really fantastically if what's at the core, the story, isn't something that readers are going to love, because you want them to get past those first few pages, right? If they're looking at a preview and they see the first few pages, or if they start reading, you want them to get hooked right away and keep reading, fall in love, get all the way to the end and be like, that was the best book. I can't wait to read more from this author. I want to tell all my friends about it. So that's why, even though we're focusing on book launching like a boss, we're starting with you getting an awesome story. All right, so this topic, make your readers fall in love with your story, is so much deeper than we're going to be able to get through today. I mean, I'm going to give you strategies, I'm going to give you practical takeaways, I'm going to give you action steps, but there is so much more to this, and we're going to be going through it in depth in our Book Launch Like a Boss boot camp, which launches in the second week of January. And we're going to walk you through these strategies that I go through today, but in a step-by-step way, and show you how you can apply them to your story and your writing. All right, so I want to really stress this again. I'm going to repeat myself, you guys. Why start with a great story? You have to have the substance. There is so much like fluff floating around on the internet and like clickbait. If you don't have a great story, people will forget your book. They may not even finish reading it. Even though you can have a beautiful cover and you have all your Amazon categories and you're using all of Ella's great strategies for marketing, ultimately, if you don't have that great story, people are like, meh, we're not coming back for more. All right. So I want to ask you guys a question. If you write, have you had the experience of sharing your writing and people are like, I don't get it, or I don't like it? Let me know on a scale of 1 to 10, how much have you had this experience where you write something from your heart and people are like, no, not for me, don't get it, I don't know. Anybody have that experience? Because I have. I took a songwriting class at one point. I was super into it. And I would get these ideas for songs and I would get super excited and I would have this really clear, specific idea I wanted to share, and I would work on the lyrics and I would get the perfect imagery. And in my mind, I was like, oh my gosh, people are going to love this because I've had this really clear idea I want to share. And I would come to the class and the critique group and I would read my lyrics and people would just kind of go, oh. And it felt awful. It was like gut-wrenching. I felt it in my gut, literally, because I had poured my heart and soul into something thinking other people would connect with it and get it. And not only did they not love it, they didn't even understand what I was trying to go for. So let me hear from you guys. How much does this impact you? How much have you experienced this? You put something from your heart out into the world and you get like not the response you were looking for. Maybe people don't love it and maybe they just don't even get it. Yeah. Oh, okay. So a 4 I'm hearing, mostly when somebody who doesn't like paranormal stuff reads it. Yeah, if you're not in front of the right audience, people just don't get it. Of course that makes a big difference. Oh, your first short story, your friend, oh, your best friend DNF'd your first story. Oh my gosh, I'm so tragically unhip. I don't know what DNF stands for, but it doesn't sound good. Yeah, it really hurts. So you guys, we all have this pain. We all have this fear of we're going to put something out there from our hearts and it's not going to, uh-oh, am I frozen? Uh-oh. Ella, help me out here. I'm seeing comments. It looks like I'm frozen, but I'm here. I'm here. Oh, did not finish reading it. Yes. Oh, thank you. That's what DNF stands for. Yeah, that's awful. And if you think about that for a book that's going out, do not finish reading means definitely do not leave a positive review and do not read the next book. All right. So here's what I'm going to take you guys through to avoid the DNF, the dreaded DNF. We're going to talk about 3 strategies you can use to make your reader fall in love with your story right from the beginning. And all of this is aimed at those of you who have got drafts that are done. I'm not suggesting you guys do big major rewrites. What I want to help you do is these little tweaks that are going to add in the elements that make readers fall in love. Okay, so it all starts with setting the mood. You guys, there's going to be a lot of like romance reference and cheesy jokes in this. I'm just telling you, it is make readers fall in love with your story. All right. So now you know. So the first thing will be setting the mood, and we'll talk about creating a mood in your story in the beginning with your writing. All right, then we want to make the sparks fly between your reader and your main character, and I'll walk you through strategies for that. Finally, we'll talk about how to be very smart with your backstory, so that you don't give us too much, right? On the first date, you want to drag out all your baggage. you want to come across all smooth. So we'll talk about mood, connecting with your main character, and smart use of backstory. And those are, again, all focused on the first few pages of your story. And then we're going to talk about one bonus strategy, and that is, okay, here it is. You know, if you're talking about love and you want love to last, it's really all about the climax. Oh yeah, I said it. So I'm going to give you some strategies for thinking later in your story about your climax and if it's helping to keep the love alive. You want people to fall in love in the first few pages, and then you want to keep that love going. All right, so does that sound good to you guys? Talking about making people get in the mood, love your character, working on backstory some, and then talk about climax. Let me know. Let me know in the comments if you're down with this. Give me a comment. Give me an emoji. Give me something. Let me know. You ready to dive in? Uh-huh. Uh-huh. I'm gonna keep dancing like this till you let me know. Okay, I got a yep. I got a thumbs up. Phew! You can all thank Amanda for stopping the dancing. And Shauna. Okay. All right. So remember that as I'm talking, if you guys have questions, you should put them in the chat. I'm not going to stop and get to them because I want to give you all the content. But Ella is keeping track of those questions, and I'm going to be answering them right after this live video in the Blab group. So make sure you join the Blab group if you haven't already. Ella's going to put a link to that in the comments. All right. So the first point, the first strategy to make readers fall in love with your story is to set the mood. Ooh, you know, think of like that first date, you want the right music, the right lighting. Okay, well, what does that mean? Let's talk about actually lighting and music and things like that. Imagine yourself in a nice restaurant. One of the things that you're getting in that restaurant besides good food is the ambiance, right? The music that's playing, the volume that it's at, the way the lighting is designed, you know, all these small little things are done really intentionally by the people in the restaurant. Why? Because when we're in the right mood, we are open to spending more money. Well, when you put your readers in the right mood with your story, they become open to falling in love. So if you're sitting in the restaurant, you're probably not consciously thinking about, oh, this is such a great song they're playing because it's just the right mix of, you know, mellow and bold lyrics. You are focused on your enjoyment of the meal. All those things that are setting the mood are happening unconsciously, which means they're hitting you directly in the emotions. They're bypassing your brain and going straight to your heart. That's what you want to do by setting the mood for your reader. And in a book, you are going to do that not with music and lighting. You're going to do that with word choice and a couple other things. I'm going to take you through those strategies. But doesn't it sound good to, with your story in the very first few pages, to put your reader in this receptive mood? You want to create an unconscious, like targeted, you know, campaign on your reader's heart and get her to start feeling like, oh yeah, this is where I want to be. Okay, here's why mood is so, so important. You want your book to feel like a place that transports readers. As soon as they start reading, they should be like, oh my gosh, I'm not in my regular world anymore. I'm in this new world and it's fascinating and I can't wait to go back there. A book that has a strong mood is a book that readers, first of all, keep flipping the pages all on, and second of all, can't wait to get back to. Don't you want your book to be the one that people can't wait to get back to? So, you know, you have to just make that mood with intention. And you know, the mood, which mood you choose is not actually as important as just creating some mood. Because if you think about your whole story, you're going to have different moods throughout, right? Sometimes your readers will feel happy, sometimes they'll feel scared, sometimes they'll feel tense, sometimes they'll be laughing. There are going to be all these different moods for all the different emotional experiences. So don't stress yourself out, go, oh, like what's the perfect mood, you know, I should have at the beginning. Just create some mood, because it's some mood that makes us go, oh, I'm in a place like this is, ooh, this place is interesting. It draws me. I want to be here. Definitely, you know, bonus would be if there's some mood that really matches your genre well. Like if you're writing a thriller and you can make that very first few pages really creepy and make your reader super creeped out right from the get-go, bonus, right? If you're writing a romantic comedy and right in the beginning you can make readers feel like light and happy and like things are awesome, that is, or you know, maybe the romantic comedy starts with like love sucks, oh my gosh, it's terrible, right? You know, those would both go with the genre, but bonus points. But don't stress yourself out. It's just important to create a strong feeling with intention. All right, so you can hear how important mood is for drawing your reader in, right? Because it skips the brain, goes right to the heart, makes people feel something, and then they want to go back to that feeling. They want to keep having that feeling. So that's why in the Blab Bootcamp, we go super in depth on this. And we are going to walk you through how you can add in the things that will create the mood early on and really draw people into your story. Without a mood, it's so much harder to get people engaged. With a mood, they're like, I'm here. It's a really, really fun tool to use. All right. So we talked a little bit about what makes a mood And I want you now to think about like different possible moods. And I gave some examples, but you know, like somebody could be at the beginning excited. They could feel tense. They could feel like swoony. All right. So here's your action step, you guys. Your action step for mood. For the first few pages of your novel, I want you to decide what mood you want to create. How do you want readers to feel? You know, should they feel scared, peaceful, amused, excited, tense, anxious, enthralled, upbeat, worried? You know, there's so many different options. Basically, just look up different emotional states. Choose one, and then read through the first 3 pages of your story. And I want you to look for, you know, like 3 to 5, just a few places where you can set this mood by careful choice of verbs, your action words. And don't overlook your dialogue tags, right? When you have people talking and you have said's totally neutral, doesn't create a mood at all. If you change it to growled, now all of a sudden I've got a mood. So that's a great place to look for mood. Okay, that is your action step. Any questions so far? Put them in the comments. And Ella will track those and we will answer them afterwards in the Blab Facebook group. All right, so I want to give you guys some examples of how word choice and sentence structure and imagery affect mood. So word choice is, you know, what I was talking about for you guys in your action step. Choose a specific verb would be an example of word choice instead of said, growled. Sentence structure and sentence length would be, how long is your sentence, and is it a question, is it an exclamation, you know, how are you getting your thoughts across? Is it complex with lots of clauses, or is it just simple and direct? And imagery is the pictures you paint for us, and that could be what's literally happening in your story with your description, and it could also be comparisons or similes you make. All right, so here's an example of a totally neutral sentence, no mood. Jill looked out the window. She had a hard time seeing since it was dark out. She thought that Tom's car might be out there, but she couldn't see it. I can't tell what mood this is, got no mood. All right, now here's what it sounds like when I went through and said, I want to create a tense mood. Listen for my verbs. Jill glanced nervously out the window. She saw nothing. Was Tom out there in the darkness? Was he waiting for her? So I switched out looked for glanced and I added an adverb nervously. I made a short sentence, she saw nothing, and I put in 2 questions. What will happen? I don't know. Okay, I'm going for that tense mood. Here's another example of totally neutral, using without any thought of imagery. Your eyes, he said. Your eyes are so bright. Okay, not getting anything. I don't know the relationship between these characters. I don't know how I'm supposed to feel. Check out this. Your eyes, he whispered. I'm cheating. I'm using my tone of voice too, but I'm pointing out, right? Instead of said, whispered. Your eyes are like beacons calling me home. I'm going for swoon-worthy, you guys. I don't write romance, so this is like my lame attempt. But let me know, does this make sense how setting the mood is really going to help readers come into your story and start loving it? So on a scale of 1 to 10, let me know if you guys see why creating a mood is really important for making people fall in love with your story. Let's hear from you. You're ready to set the mood. And it's so fun because you don't have to engage with the reader's conscious mind at all. You're just going straight for the feels. Straight for the feels. All right. Okay, I'm not seeing anybody who's responding about mood. So, maybe I didn't get y'all in the mood enough. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep trying to get y'all in the mood by talking about creating sparks between your reader and your main character. All right, so this is strategy 2. Make your reader relate to your main character. So we get invested in a story as a whole when we get invested in the main character. But this doesn't mean people have to like your main character. It doesn't mean they have to go, I totally want to have friends with that guy, or no, be friends with that guy. It just means we have to connect with something in your main character. And I want you guys to think of a scenario you may have been in yourselves. Have you ever gone to a school play or a play that children are in, and there's one kid who like forgets his lines, or he trips, or he flubs, and we're like, oh, that poor kid, oh no. And then every time that kid comes back on stage after his initial whatever it is, we're all rooting for him. We're all like, oh my gosh, yes, he said his line right. We are so happy. Why is that? It's because we saw him in a vulnerable moment, and now we're like, we love this kid. This kid's the best. Oh my gosh, he said his line right. He's the kid we clap for the loudest at the end of the play, even if he's not our kid. We're like, yes, go you, go shepherd number 3. So when we see vulnerability in somebody else, it gives us this chance to empathize. By the way, if you guys follow Ella's marketing strategies, you'll notice this theme that the way she tells you to help connect with people is like, be a little vulnerable, you know, that's what makes connection. All right, so there are 2 really straightforward ways you can help people empathize with your character right from the get-go. The first is to show a vulnerability, to show a weakness, right? So that might be like a little weakness, just something happening related to that scene, or it might be a big weakness that's related to the whole plot. But think of the beginning of the first Harry Potter, right? After we learn that this poor kid's parents have been killed, then we see him living with this terrible aunt and uncle who make him live in a closet under the stairs. We're like, oh my gosh, I feel for that kid. Boom, we are instantly drawn into the story. So ask, you know, how can I make my character appear a bit vulnerable so that people can make the connection? All right, but there's another way that you can create instant connection and empathy, and that's by showing us something that is your character's heart's desire. Ooh. And here's why. Wanting something with all of our hearts actually makes us a little bit vulnerable, because we're like, ooh, I don't know if I'm gonna get it. Is that, oh, I might be disappointed, but I want it so much. So if you can show us what your character wants more than anything else, like a true genuine desire, not like, oh yeah, it might be nice to have that, but a true genuine desire, you will build that connection and build that empathy. And it doesn't have to be that the main character wants something your reader wants. We don't connect based on that. We just connect to the feeling of wanting something. We're like, I know what it feels like to really, really want something like that. All right. So the main point of relating to your reader is going to be this connection. It's going to be this like, oh, I totally feel for that person because she's an underdog, or I totally get it. She wants that. And it's super powerful for us. Now in the Blab boot camp, we're going to go deep dive into how you can get in the first few pages of your story a way for us to empathize with your character, either through vulnerability or through wanting something really hardcore. And it's so important for that to be in the first few pages. So again, that's something where, you know, you don't want to think about rewriting your entire story, but you want to think, how can I get in the first few pages the, you know, the key ingredient that makes somebody really connect and empathize. So now it's time for you to take action. You guys ready for an action step? Action step. Okay. Give me a check-in. Ella, how am I doing connection-wise? How's my speed? All right, thank you. Are you guys ready for an action step? Action step. Okay, read back through the first chapter of your story and hunt for some kind of vulnerability or some kind of heart's desire that your character has. Ooh. And if you don't have either, I don't want you to panic, because this is the kind of thing you can sprinkle in after the fact. Adding in a big heart's desire might mess up other things in your plot. So don't try to do that if you don't have one already. But instead, think about a vulnerability. Can you put your character in a situation where somebody is taking advantage of her, or she totally goofs and messes up, or she is like just putting up with obnoxious people? You know, give us something that will help us see, oh man, I can totally relate to that. I've had that feeling. So if you guys have questions about helping us empathize with your character or creating vulnerability, make sure to put them in the comments. Ella will grab them and we will answer them in the live Q&A in the Blab group. If you haven't joined the Blab group, make sure you do that, because the Q&A will only be there. It's not going to be in All Writers Welcome. It's just for Blabbers. So come be a Blabber with us. All right. Let's check out some examples of how we connect with characters by empathizing with them. All right. You guys, this blew my mind. This is something that I heard on This American Life with Ira Glass. He did a whole show about, like, at the beginnings of musicals, how there are often these songs where people tell us exactly what they wish and exactly what they want, and it gets the whole thing going. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. But you can see it for yourself. Go watch your favorite Disney animated musical and look for that opening number, right? Whether it's Belle wanting more than this poor provincial life, or it's Ariel like wanting to be where the people are, or even like classic Snow White. She's literally sitting at a wishing well telling us what she wishes for, and you go, oh yeah, and then I'm totally hooked into the story because I know what this character wants. I wanted to share with you also the opening from a YA fantasy. This is a passage from Dragon's Blood by Jane Yolen, and it's the first few pages, and I just wanted you guys to be able to hear how quickly I know what the character wants. All right. The twin moons cast shadows like blood scores across the land. Jaqen hunkered down in a bowl-shaped depression and listened. Inside the wood and stone dragonry, he could hear the mewling and scratching of hatchlings as they pipped out of their shells. One more night and the hatchling would be complete. One more night and he could steal in and pick out a hatchling to raise in secret out in the sands. As he listened, Jaqen stroked the leather bond bag that hung from his neck chain. The bag held only a few coins, but Jaqen knew that once he had trained his dragon to fight in the pits, his bag would be plump and jangling with gold. Then no one could call him Bonder again, and he would answer to no master's call but his own. He would be a boy no longer, but a man. Da, 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 da. All right, so there's a lot going on there that's unanswered. We're going to talk about that in a second when we talk about artful use of backstory, but oh my gosh, I'm hooked. I know what this character wants, and that's a big want. Like, that's a heart's desire. You want to be your own person. You want to be a man. You want to not be controlled by other people. I'm like, I am so down for that. All right. So if you guys hear that desire, think about how you can put it in your own story. I've given you that action step. Go read through your first few pages and see, where do I have a heart's desire? Where do I have a vulnerability so people can connect? All right, how are we doing? You guys seeing the importance of connecting with your main character? You don't have to love your main character. We don't have to be like your main character. We just have to see your main character as human. We're like, oh, you got a flaw, I got a flaw, I relate. You got a heart's desire, I got a heart's desire. I feel you, man. I feel you. All right. Okay, good. I'm getting some thumbs up and some cool emoji. Oh my gosh. I gotta bone up on all my emoji. I don't know how to do the flowers. You guys, you know all the cool ones. So I hinted, like, I'm going to talk about this in a minute, and you already know the third strategy is to choose your backstory carefully in the first few pages of your story, right? This is the first date. You're getting the electricity. You want the chemistry to build up. You don't need to tell your life story. You definitely don't need to talk about how you're going to fight with your mom, right? You want to give the backstory sparingly. And if that makes you feel worried, I want to tell you guys probably the most powerful secret about storytelling. Once your readers care, once they are invested in your story, they will figure out what they need to figure out. They will put work and investment and effort into finding out, what is the dragon pit and what is a bonder and, who are these people and what is the setting? Once they care, they will do the work they need to find out. And I'm going to talk about, you're not going to leave them completely hanging, but once they care, they'll figure it out. If they don't care, then you're basically just giving them an encyclopedia entry, right? It's like sitting down and reading Wikipedia, and you're like, oh, that's very interesting about this place and this setting, but who cares? I'm moving on. So the big secret is get them to care first, and then they will work to figure out that backstory, right? It's like me watching the second season of Stranger Things. I'm like, I don't know who all these characters are, but I know this is such a good series. Like, I'm with you. I will stick with it until I figure out who these other people are and what's going on and where Elle is and, you know, all the good stuff, because I'm already invested in the characters. I already care. All right. So the backstory has to take a back seat to the emotional connection. And I want to talk about, limiting backstory for some really specific reasons too. If you pile on backstory, what you might end up doing is actually interrupting the bonding that you want your reader to be doing with your main character. Remember, that very first thing is getting your reader in the mood and making her feel like, oh, it's a vivid place, and helping her connect with your character so she cares. If you start throwing in a lot of backstory, it can interrupt the chemistry. So in that example I read you from Jane Yolen's Dragon's Blood, if she had paused to explain to me like what a dragon pit is and what a bonder is, it would have stopped the flow and the pacing. It would have stopped the momentum of me leading up to, you know, there's this crescendo leading up to whoever this Jaqen is. He's not his own person. He has a master and he's not free. And I'm like, oh, I want to know about that. I care about freedom. Right? So you can totally disrupt the momentum if you try to add in too much backstory too soon. And here's why it works. Readers are smart. Do you guys, this is crazy to me, but not everybody reads. Like, this is such a wild concept to me, but there are people in the world who don't read at all. They're like, reading, meh, I don't like it. And then there are people like, oh, I'll read if I'm forced to. People who read for enjoyment are already a special group of people. They are people you can count on to be interested, curious, and people who enjoy thinking. So I'm not saying, oh, like make it totally confusing, but I'm just saying it's okay for your reader to have to make a few inferences here and there. Again, going back to the Jane Yolen story, it said something about a dragon pit and he was going to make money. I don't know what a dragon pit is. Well, I do because I've read the book. But when I first read it, I don't know what it is, but I'm like, okay, it's something about dragons fighting. Like, I know boxing is a thing and you can make money. There's prize money and people can bet. I'm like, I can make an inference, right? Again, I don't know what a bonder is, but it talks about having a master. I can make an inference that's, you know, some form of not being free. Your readers are willing to think. So it's okay to focus on the emotion up front and then let the backstory come in, you know, in little bits, because they're going to do the work. They're going to think. All right, when and how to reveal backstory is a big variable. It's going to depend on your genre. It's going to depend on the type of story you're telling. It's going to depend on your personal writing style. So that's why we really, really focus and dive deep in the Book Launch Like a Boss Bootcamp, because we're going to help you figure out what's the right amount of backstory for you to deliver and when, so that readers know what they need to know. You don't want them to be confused, but you also don't want to disrupt the important emotional momentum that you're building in those first few pages. And this is really a huge key in helping readers fall in love. So it's a big, it's a thing we spend a lot of time on and give you a lot of love on, so you can give your story a lot of love, so your readers can give your story love in the Blab Bootcamp. You guys ready for a take action step? All right, here's what you can do. I want you to read through the first chapter of your story and mark all the places where you give backstory. Just mark them, just notice them. You're like, oh, then I tell what this is and I tell what this is. Backstory might be about the character's emotions. It might be about the world, anything in the setting, you know, what happened 6 months ago. Look for all your places where you give backstory and ask in those moments, am I also giving a way for my reader to connect to the story emotionally? And that might be through mood, or it might be through connecting to the main character. So just ask, am I doing that? If not, challenge yourself and ask, how can I connect this backstory to emotion? And that's a great way to start. And you might end up cutting a little backstory. I'm not saying you have to, but you might end up cutting a little bit of backstory because you go, you know, I can't find a way to connect that to the emotion. And you'll start paying attention more to what's the momentum and the buildup of the emotion, because I don't want to interrupt that. All right. Any questions so far about being selective with backstory? Remember to add those into the comments. Ella's going to grab them. We're going to address them in the Blab Q&A. Some of you have already submitted questions ahead of time about character and backstory and getting readers to fall in love. We'll go over those as well and talk about them in the Blab Facebook group. All right. So now that you know you need to limit your backstory and make sure it's part of that emotional connection, let's take a look at how to do that. You need to pair your backstory with your plan to help us connect emotionally with your main character. So that means you want to reveal backstory in a way that also shows either your main character's vulnerability or desire. You know, whichever of those two empathy points you're going for. You're going for a vulnerability, you're going for a desire, maybe a combo. All right, so here are some of my favorite methods. You can have your character in the present reacting to things around her. And the best way to do this is to think of a specific person, place, or object and show us your character reacting to that emotionally. Okay, so that draws us in, we've got the emotion. Now that you've got us hooked with the emotion, you can do a little bit of backstory. You can kind of sprinkle in the backstory. You know, this is the little hints. It's not foreshadow. It's like back shadow. It's like hinting at what are the things that have already happened, right? So you could tell us about where this object came from, or the last time she saw this person, or you know, anything that delivers the information you need because you've already made it emotionally significant. But you can also, another great method is to have your character react to the past or the future. And reacting to the past means remembering, and reacting to future means like anticipating in some way. So it might be you're worried, or you're anxious, or you're excited, or you're looking forward to something. And again, you attach it to, you know, a specific person, place, or thing is the easiest way to like jump in. You give us the emotion that is there, and then you tell a little bit of the backstory about what has already happened or what is going to happen. And that might seem funny, like how is what's going to happen backstory? But remember, backstory is all the elements that give us the context. It's the pieces that we need to know for the other stuff to make sense. So just take that, pair it with the emotion in the moment, and we're like, okay, cool. Now I'm interested because I know how this character I care about is being affected. All right, y'all. So on a scale of 1 to 10, or flower emoji to angry face emoji, I guess other way around, angry face emoji to flower emoji, do you see why scaling back on backstory is actually helpful? I know it's painful. I know a lot of authors are like, but how will people know what's going on in my world? You know, how will they see whether the, you know, how will I make the world make sense? How will they know that this character really is going to be the true king of England or something like that? You will get a chance to tell us more. And it's just the first few pages where I want you to really hold back. But think of it like the first date. You gotta have the connection before somebody's interested in hearing about how your job's going and the name of your pet lizard. All right. So those were the 3 main strategies for the beginning of your story. And now I want to take you guys through a bonus strategy. So, you know, we're talking about love. People are falling in love with your story, and sure, it's great if fall in love at the beginning, but what makes people stay? Good climax, right? No getting around it. Okay. So in the context of what we've been talking about, you know, a good climax is what I call an of course climax. That means that when your climax arrives, waka waka, when your climactic scene arrives, people are like, oh, yes, of course. That doesn't mean they necessarily guessed what the climax was. It doesn't mean that on page 17, people are like, oh, in the climactic scene, I bet this is going to happen and she's going to do that. I just mean that it feels like exactly the right kind of climax from the seeds you planted at the beginning. Because if you've gone to the trouble of going back through your first few pages in your first chapter, and you've made this cool mood that draws people in and makes them feel they're in the story, and we've connected with your character, and you've like been really careful with your backstory so we can continue the momentum emotionally, if all of that doesn't go somewhere, we feel let down. We feel cheated. We feel like, oh, that was the, you know, the person who seemed so nice in the great first few dates and then never called me again, you know, and now I'm angry. I don't want to fall in love with any more stories. No, at least not from that author, right? So making sure that you have created a climax that makes sense, that grows out of those seeds you've planted in the beginning, is really, really important. One of the biggest mistakes that I see authors make with the climactic scene is they're like, well, I don't want people to guess. It's got to be original. And they have a climax that's totally disconnected from the rest of the story, comes out of left field. There's no feeling of like all the emotion has been working towards something. And, you know, at best, people are kind of like, and at worst, they're like, I don't get it. That was boring. And you're back to DNF, right? Stop reading right at the climax. Like, this is not a good story. So if you struggle with plot or crafting believable characters, your life is actually going to get so much easier when you get this climactic scene piece and figure out how to link your character to your climax. And that's one of the trainings we're doing in the Blab boot camp, is thinking about building your character and your climax at the same time so you get that deep connection. And we're going to go into depth about how to really satisfy readers with a climax that feels like, of course, and also satisfy you so that you're like, yeah, I want it to still be interesting. I don't want people to have guessed exactly what's going to happen. But we'll start with that first chapter and pair it with your climax and get that good synergy going. All right, you guys, here's an action step for you related to your climax. I want you to read the climax of your story. And as you're reading, I want you to ask, what does my main character face, overcome, or let go of? What new strength or belief does my main character demonstrate? And you might have an answer to just one of those, but ask all those questions, see which one you can get an answer to. You know, what does she face? What does she overcome? What does she let go of? What new strength or belief does she demonstrate? Or even, is there a straw that breaks the camel's back? Is this, you know, if so, what is that straw and why does it break the camel's back? Then go back to your first chapter. Did you plant a seed? Even if it's small, did you plant a seed that grows into what happens in the climax? If not, you're gonna need to plant a seed. And I'll tell you the easiest way to do it is with a vulnerability, because the heart's desire, if you try to put in a different heart's desire, it's probably going to mess up other things in your plot. But if you put in a vulnerability early on, then we'll see that seed come to fruition in the climax. It's going to be super exciting. So any questions about creating and of course climax, put them in the comments. Ella's grabbing those. We're going to be answering them in the live Q&A that's in only the Book Launch Like a Boss Facebook group following this video. So make sure you put in any questions and we'll get those answered. And I want to stress this. What happens to your main character in the climax is not nearly as important as how your main character feels about what's happening in the climax. So I don't want you to feel pressure and stress like, oh, I have to have this climax that's like the perfectly crafted, you know, thing, this situation that is destined to happen to this character. Take away that pressure and instead ask, like, how could I get my character to feel the way she should feel in the climax to show what I want to show, whether it's a change or a growth or, you know, not taking any guff from anyone anymore, breakthrough, something like that. And here's one of my favorite examples. In the movie Fried Green Tomatoes, Kathy Bates plays this character who is just put upon by everybody. Like, people are mean to her and they belittle her. And she's always followed the rules her whole life. Like, that's what she does. And near the end of the movie, she has this like superwoman growth, and she finds her inner strength. And she's there's this great scene. She's in the parking lot of a store, and she's like patiently waiting for the spot. She has her blinker on. And another car zooms in, takes the spot, and these girls get out of the car, and they're all sassy, and they're like, face it, we're younger and faster. And she's like, oh, I was waiting for that spot. Okay. And then you see this, like, her face totally changes, and she starts ramming the car, and she smashes the heck out of it. And the girls come back, and they're like, oh my God. And she says, face it, I'm older, and I have more insurance. Okay, there's nothing special about that parking lot. There's nothing special about the girls. We don't see them before, we don't see them after. So having a scene in a parking lot where she smashes a car, there's nothing leading up to, oh, she's a good driver, or anything like that. This scene is all about giving some place for this character to be like, I'm not going to take it anymore. Like, you have insulted me and put me down for the last time, right? So what she experiences way more important than what's literally happened. So just want you to keep that in mind. All right, you guys, Is this making sense? Are you seeing how your climax can be an of course without being obvious? Like, of course, Evelyn Couch had to get to a moment where she's like, I'm tired of following the rules when nobody else does. I'm tired of, you know, people making fun of me for the way I look or for my age, and I'm not going to take it anymore. All right, awesome. I'm seeing a lot of smiley faces and hearts. All right. So those are 3 strategies from the beginning and 1 strategy for the end. Went through them really fast. You know, we'll have a time for Q&A, but this is a lot of information. We realize we get it, you guys. But that's why we are, you know, doing these trainings as a way to invite you to the Book Launch Like a Boss Bootcamp that is launching the 2nd week of January. This is going to be an 8-week program with hands-on coaching from me and from Ella about launching your book. And, you know, we're going to go into more examples. You're going to have step-by-step instructions and checklists for doing things like setting your mood, making sure your readers are connecting. Even though it is a very emotional experience for your readers, it's actually a really like specific and like analytical thing that you as the author can do. Like, you can know whether you're making those connections. You have a little checklist and you're like, oh, I did that. I got 3 of these. Okay, I am good to go. And such a great feeling to know like, oh yes, I definitely did the things that will help my reader fall in love, instead of, I hope. All right. So we're going to be also just showing you ways to work smarter, not harder. As I've mentioned, a lot of these, you know, the first 3 strategies are really about going back to the beginning of your book and helping to tweak it instead of having to rewrite. You know, if you have a finished draft at this point, we want you to be able to just maximize that draft, not to have to rewrite the whole thing. So we're going to show you how to work smarter, not harder. We're going to be diving deep into these topics, you know, how to get readers to connect with your main character, creating the mood, creating that great climax, and then also all of the other, you know, great marketing topics that Ella will be covering. We're going to walk you through your newsletter and how to get reviews, how to get fans and followers, building your launch team, all these pieces. And it all starts with having a great story, but it is taking you through all the pieces to build not just the information you need, but the skills you need, because part of what's going to be really important in this 8-week coaching is take action time. Now on this training, I have given you some things to take action on, but there's not time to do them, right? There's not time as you're listening to this training to go through and read back through. But in the coaching program, we are creating the time and the space and the accountability so that when you guys learn what you need to do and get the step-by-step instructions, you can go do it. That means you can come back and get the feedback. You can ask your questions. You can tell us how it went and what you need to keep moving forward. So we're really, really excited to be offering this 8-week coaching program starting the 2nd week of January. Book launch like a boss. And if it sounds like what you've been waiting for to kick your book sales into high gear, make sure you stay tuned to Blab. Go ahead and join the Blab Facebook group to get the rest of the free masterclasses we're doing, Q&As with me and Ella, and all the details about how you can join us in launching like a boss in 2018. Okay, speaking of Q&As, let's get ours started. We're going to take a quick 5-minute break so that anybody who is just joining Blab now has a chance for us to let you in. And we'll wait to, if you've just applied, we will wait to start the Q&A until you guys have actually gotten into the group. So fear not. And we will see you shortly in Blab to talk further and answer all your questions. All right, you guys, thank you so much for watching, and I can't wait to go Blab with you. Bye.